My wife won a $9 million jackpot, filed for divorce, and kicked me out, but she forgot about the prenup her parents forced me to sign before our marriage. I, 35 am, come from a simple background. My parents live in a quiet suburb, and I grew up in a small 3-bedroom house that always smelled like fresh laundry and home-cooked meals. After high school, I took a series of odd jobs, bartending, helping at my uncle's hardware store, eventually managing a local sporting goods shop. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. My wife, on the other hand, came from a world I'd never experienced. Her parents owned multiple properties, drove fancy cars, and hosted large, ostentatious parties a few times a year. Let's call them my father-in-law, FIL, and mother-in-law, Mael. My FIL was a tall, imposing figure, socially and physically, exuding a quiet dominance in any room. He'd make casual remarks that were more like veiled threats or manipulations. My MIL was similarly skilled at subtle disapproval. Just one raised eyebrow could make people shrink. They were never overtly cruel in front of me, but I felt their disapproval lurking beneath polite conversation. After my wife and I got engaged, I realized how much her parents feared outsiders, nabbing their family assets. They looked at me like an intruder, despite the fact that my wife and I had been dating for years. Before we could set a wedding date, my FIL demanded I sign a prenuptial agreement. I didn't have the finances to fight it legally, and I was too blinded by love. I kept telling myself it was just a symbolic thing to appease her parents. Love was all the guarantee I needed, right? The day I signed remains vivid in my mind. It was a warm afternoon at her parents' massive home. My FIL laid out the document, slid a pen my way. My MIL offered me coffee, almost like it was a normal business transaction. My wife stood off to the side, saying little. That hurt, but I shrugged it off, figuring it wouldn't matter in the long run. The contract basically said that any gifts, inheritances, or trust funds belonging to her family remained her separate property, while any major asset we acquired jointly, like a house or lottery winnings, would be marital property. I found that odd, but I just wanted to marry her. 6 months later, we married by a lake in a picturesque ceremony. My parents were overwhelmed by the extravagance, but supportive. I recall tension on my father's face when he greeted my in-laws. He'd always told me to trust my gut, but I thought love would conquer all doubts. The first couple of years went by without major incident. We live in a condo her parents helped us secure. I paid monthly toward the mortgage, though the down payment had come from her father's gift. Looking back, it was never truly a gift, more like a tool for controlling us. But back then, I assumed this was just how wealthy families operated. Our marriage had the usual money squabbles and occasional blowouts about our parents intruding on our decisions. They'd show up unannounced, bring new furniture or decor, and occasionally reorder our entire living space without warning. My wife would brush off my frustration, labeling it her parents' helpful nature. Then came the day that turned everything upside down. My wife called me, breathless with excitement, saying she'd won a $9 million lottery jackpot from a random ticket she bought at a gas station. At first, I was elated, dreaming of quitting our jobs, traveling the world. But the joy dimmed quickly. She insisted we keep it secret, even from my parents. She became oddly paranoid, talking about claiming the money properly and meeting with lawyers I'd never met. When I asked to join these meetings, she said, "You'd feel out of place," which stung. I had no clue the real bombshell was yet to come. One afternoon, I came home from work, exhausted, to find her there with her aunt rummaging through drawers. She dropped the news as if it was casual. She was filing for divorce. She told me to pack my bags and leave the condo, an arrangement she claimed was under her name. I was floored. Sure, I'd contributed monthly mortgage payments, but apparently she believed her father's initial down payment and her new fortune made me irrelevant. I felt my heart splinter. I called my father, voice shaking, telling him I'd just been kicked out of my own home. It was the ultimate betrayal. But the biggest shock came next. I discovered that my father-in-law had sent his personal attorney to shield her. They wanted me out so they could isolate the lottery winnings from me. Except they'd forgotten the terms of the very prenup they forced on me. Instead of shielding their daughter entirely, it said that any windfall acquired during marriage counted as a joint asset. Suddenly, I realized that if they insisted on divorcing me right after that jackpot, they might not get to keep it all. I decided to handle things carefully. My father urged me to stay calm, get a lawyer outside their social circle, and brace for a nasty fight. And I was determined not to fold. They'd thrown down the gauntlet, pushing me around like an expendable nuisance. If they thought I'd quietly walk away, they had severely underestimated me. I spent a few nights at my parents' place, trying to absorb the shock. My mother was livid, ranting that my in-laws were disrespectful from day one. My father, while equally angry, stayed pragmatic. He contacted an old friend, a family law attorney, and got me an appointment first thing in the morning. Sitting in that attorney's office, I felt a swirl of anger and relief. I told him how the in-laws insisted on the prenup, how my wife just won $9 million, and then blindsided me with divorce. When he looked over the prenup, he actually chuckled. They shot themselves in the foot, he said. They specifically included language that lumps lottery winnings under marital assets. Unless a judge does some wild legal interpretation, you're entitled to a substantial portion. Hearing this was like a lifeline. I've been so worried the prenup would lock me out, but it turned out their fear of me claiming inherited wealth had overshadowed the possibility of a lottery scenario. My lawyer warned it wouldn't be easy. My in-laws were wealthy, well-connected, and likely to deploy an entire legal team. But he believed we had a strong case, especially since I contributed financially to the marriage and been abruptly expelled from our jointly occupied home. I asked about the divorce process. In our state, a contested divorce could easily stretch for months or longer. But if my wife's side realized they were on shaky ground, they might seek a fast settlement. The lawyer predicted they'd try intimidation or underhanded tactics to get me to sign away my rights cheaply. Sure enough, my father-in-law left me a menacing voicemail within days, telling me to back off because I didn't deserve anything from his daughter. He claimed if I tried to pursue the lottery winnings, he'd ensure I ended up with nothing. My lawyer just advised me to document it all. Then my mother-in-law cornered me outside my parent home, offering a pittance if I'd vanish quietly. She presented it as a generous deal, which was so low it wouldn't even cover half the mortgage contributions I'd made. I refused, saying we'd see each other in court. She scoffed, baffled by my defiance, clearly unaccustomed to anyone rejecting her money. With negotiations at a standstill, my lawyer filed motions to secure the lottery funds from being hidden or transferred. That enraged my in-laws, who started spinning tales about me being a gold digger who preyed on their innocent daughter. It stung, but I stood firm. My boss, who owned the sporting goods shop, had my back, brushing off my father-in-law's attempts to meddle in my employment. Friends took sides, some calling me petty, others applauding me for fighting back. The tension was suffocating, but I refused to cave. After a couple of weeks of fruitless negotiation, we got a court date. My wife was nowhere to be found personally. She was practically under her parents' protective wing, ignoring all direct communication with me. She had her lawyers do the talking, claiming I was the leech who'd contributed nothing to the marriage. My lawyer pushed back with financial records, timeshare of bills, and the explicit prenup clause about windfalls. We also highlighted how I'd been violently shut out of the condo. The judge ordered both sides to prepare for a more formal hearing on asset division. In one last attempt at intimidation, my father-in-law threatened my boss again, who promptly told him to get lost. That only fueled my father-in-law's anger. My lawyer said we needed to proceed carefully, but that he was confident a judge would see through their scare tactics. Nothing could have prepared me for the final showdown in court, but at least I knew the law was, ironically, on my side, thanks to the very prenup they'd forced on me. Weeks passed, and the tension around the upcoming hearing reached a fever pitch. My wife still avoided direct contact with me, yet her lawyers bombarded mine with motions. They insisted the lottery win was separate property because she purchased the ticket, ignoring the prenup language that any major windfall during marriage was marital. Meanwhile, my father-in-law tried to smear my reputation among friends and business contacts, peddling the narrative that I was a gold digger who'd married into the family solely for money. During this period, I felt a swirl of frustration and motivation. If they believed they could bully me out of my rights, they were mistaken. I had documents showing how I contributed to our shared life, utility bills, groceries, partial mortgage payments. My attorney and I pored over every detail of the prenup. He pointed out a critical sentence specifying all financial windfalls, including but not limited to lottery or game show winnings, shall be considered marital assets unless expressly designated otherwise. It was like my in-laws had left a back door open without realizing it. A week before the hearing, we had a preliminary status conference. My wife arrived with her parents and a posse of lawyers, 4 attorneys, plus a financial advisor. They looked at me with that same air of superiority, but their expressions faltered when my lawyer calmly produced the prenup text, highlighting the exact clause about lottery proceeds. The judge listened quietly, seemed unimpressed by their attempts to dismiss it, and ordered that all substantial assets remain frozen until the main hearing. That same afternoon, my mother-in-law cornered me outside the courthouse, insisting we should talk like adults. She tried offering a lump sum even lower than before, labeling it generous for someone of my background. I refused again, telling her we'd let the judge decide. She snapped that I was destroying the family, as if I were the one who blindsided her daughter with a divorce. The hypocrisy made my blood boil, but I kept my cool. My lawyer had warned me not to engage in heated exchanges that could be twisted against me later. Behind the scenes, I was worried my in-laws might try to stash the lottery winnings in secret accounts. My lawyer, anticipating that possibility, requested court orders preventing any large transfers. We also arranged to have a forensic accountant ready if we suspected them of hiding funds. My father-in-law's anger flared. He left me a voicemail calling me vile, accusing me of draining the love out of his daughter's life. It was rich, considering they were the ones who threw me out right after hitting the jackpot. As the hearing approached, I prepared meticulously with my attorney. We rehearsed my statement, ensuring I'd appear calm and factual in court. I had copies of the prenup, receipts for the mortgage I'd partially funded, and even text showing my wife acknowledging our joint bills. The lawyer recommended I keep my answers concise, let the evidence speak. If they tried emotional theatrics, we'd counter with clear documentation. On the morning of the hearing, I stood in front of the courthouse, heart pounding. My parents accompanied me for moral support, though they waited outside the courtroom once proceedings began. Stepping in, I saw my wife seated beside her father, both wearing stone-cold expressions. Her mother lingered at the back, arms folded. My father-in-law's lawyers, with their polished suits, looked confident, perhaps believing money and legal muscle could outmatch the facts. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s, wasted no time. She invited each side to present arguments. My wife's lead attorney tried framing me as a minor contributor who'd done little more than occupy the same living space. They argued the lottery purchase was her personal transaction, done with her money. But my lawyer calmly pointed out how the prenup explicitly lumps such windfalls into marital property, and we also had bank records showing she'd used our joint account card that day. When we introduced that evidence, I saw visible tension ripple through my father-in-law's camp. The judge asked if they had any contrary documentation proving it was her personal funds. They fumbled, claiming the card was accidentally used or that it was her father's deposit in the account. But the statements clearly labeled our names, not hers alone. The judge took note, her gaze shifting to them expectantly. Finally, my wife spoke. She claimed she never wanted to hurt me, that her parents pushed for divorce once the jackpot arrived to protect family assets. She stumbled over her words, admitting she felt pressured, but also tried to justify it as everyone would come after us if they knew about the money. My lawyer asked if she consulted me before making these decisions. She admitted no. The judge's disapproval became palpable. By midday, it was clear the prenuptial agreement was a double-edged sword for them. The very document they'd enforced to isolate their wealth now threatened to place a massive chunk of lottery winnings in my hands. The judge scheduled a subsequent hearing for final decisions, stating she was inclined to treat the lottery as a major marital asset subject to equitable distribution. Outside, my father-in-law walked past me, muttering, "This is far from over." But his confidence was definitely cracked. In the weeks leading up to the final ruling, their desperation escalated. My father-in-law's lawyers tried everything, filing motions to reconsider the prenup's wording, claiming intent hadn't been to include lottery proceeds. The judge denied these motions, pointing to the plain language. My mother-in-law tried cornering me again, warning me I'd regret it if I broke their family. I told her point blank that they'd started this by kicking me out and blindsiding me with divorce. My wife tried reaching out, leaving emotional voicemails saying she didn't want things to end so bitterly, that if we just come to a private arrangement, we could still salvage some relationship. I'd have considered it if they'd treated me fairly from the start. But after the intimidation, the lies, and the forced eviction, my trust was gone. My lawyer advised me not to engage in these back-channel talks. We had a strong legal position, no reason to settle for crumbs. Finally, the day of the final hearing arrived. The courtroom was packed with attorneys for both sides. My father, mother, and a few friends came to support me, seated quietly in the back. The judge took the bench, reviewed the updated filings, and allowed final statements. My father-in-law's lead lawyer tried one last gamble, painting me as some cunning opportunist who only discovered the prenup's loophole after benefiting from the family's generosity. My lawyer countered with the straightforward facts. 1. They forced me to sign the prenup. 2. It explicitly included lottery or any windfall as shared property. And 3. My father-in-law financed part of our condo, yet I contributed monthly, so it wasn't a purely separate asset either. Moreover, the swift divorce filing right after the jackpot was textbook evidence of their plan to isolate me from the winnings. The judge listened patiently, then delivered her ruling. She declared the lottery winnings clearly fell under marital assets per the prenup's language. She criticized my in-laws for trying to twist the agreement they themselves had drafted. She also found that my wife's immediate eviction of me from the condo was unreasonable, and that I was entitled to reimbursement for my portion of the mortgage and other marital contributions. In short, O1, the judge set forth an order. I'd receive a substantial percentage of the lottery payout, plus reimbursement for my share in the condo. We parted ways with a finalization date set a few weeks later, just to process paperwork. My father-in-law's face was thunderous. My mother-in-law looked outraged, whispering furiously to him. My wife stood there, tears in her eyes, maybe from genuine regret, or maybe from anger at losing so much money. I felt a swirl of vindication and sadness. We once loved each other. But greed, parental influence, and their attempts to exploit me shattered everything. In the aftermath, their lawyers tried to propose a slightly modified settlement, likely hoping I'd accept a smaller sum to avoid further drama. My lawyer recommended we finalize the judge's ruling as is. We had no incentive to reduce it. The only concession I made was giving up all interest in the condo. I never wanted to set foot in that place again. They cut me a check for an impressive sum. Was it half the jackpot? Not exactly, but it was big enough to let me rebuild my life comfortably. Throughout it all, I realized that my in-laws, in their arrogance, believed wealth insulated them from consequences. They didn't expect me to fight back effectively. The prenuptial agreement they insisted on ironically became the very instrument that secured my share of the winnings, poetic justice, if ever there was. My wife, as far as I know, remains under her parents' wing. She's lost face in her social circle for the fiasco that erupted. Some mutual acquaintances told me she's struggling with guilt, but I doubt she'll ever openly admit her family's role in orchestrating this. I used part of the settlement to help my parents upgrade their home as gratitude for standing by me. Another portion I invested. And though the entire ordeal left me scarred, changing how I view trust, marriage, and money, I take comfort in knowing I stood my ground. I refused to be bullied into accepting table scraps. While it was excruciatingly painful, the final outcome felt like a triumph over tyranny. Now, free from my in-laws' manipulative grasp, I'm moving forward. I've returned to a simpler life, ironically reminiscent of my pre-marriage days. But I'm stronger, wiser, and not at all the naive man they assumed they could steamroll. If they recall anything about me, let it be that they inadvertently gave me the legal weapon to ensure I wasn't left penniless. They started the war. I finished it. And that's the end of this chapter.
My stepmom made insane new house rules. Obey or get out, she demanded. I just laughed. Then pointed out, her name wasn't on the deed. Dad made her leave that weekend. My phone is still recovering from her raging texts. I, 20M, live with my dad, 50M, Liam. My mom passed away when I was younger, and Dad remarried about 3 years ago to Maeve, 40F. It's been fine? Like, okay most of the time. Maeve always liked things just so, a bit particular, but Dad's pretty easygoing and usually smoothed things over. We live in the house Dad owned with my mom. Mortgage paid off years before Maeve came along. That detail became pretty crucial, fast. So, last Tuesday night, things went sideways. Dad was working late. I was chilling in the living room playing some games online with mates. Maeve walks in, looking thunderous, holding a sheet of paper. Not laminated this time, just printer paper, but still radiating pure dictator vibes. Ronan, we need to talk about the new house expectations, she starts, her voice tight. I pause my game. Okay, what expectations? She reads off this list. And lads, it was pure madness. Common area curfew at 10:30 p.m. Lights off, quiet. Seriously? I'm 20. Overnight guests require 24-hour notice and Maeve's approval. My mates sometimes crash spontaneously. Kitchen cleanup immediately after use. No food prep after 9 p.m. RIP late-night toasties. Mandatory contribution to household running costs. $250 a month. I already cover my own phone, car, food, contribute to groceries sometimes, and help Dad with chores, DIY stuff. Personal belongings left in common areas subject to removal. My college bag by the door, my coat. Noise levels to be kept minimal after 9 p.m. So, headphones forever? It was just controlling nonsense. I genuinely thought she was winding me up at first. Maeve, are you serious? I asked, maybe smirking a bit because it sounded so over the top. That set her off. This is my home too, Ronan. I won't have you treating it like a student kip. Liam agrees we need more order. You either respect these rules or you need to reconsider living here. It's obey or get out. The smirk died fast. Her home? Obey or get out. The absolute cheek of it. Maeve, I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could because honestly, my heart was pounding a bit. First, Dad got home like an hour ago and went straight to his office. I highly doubt he co-signed this novel you've written. Second, this isn't your house. She started puffing up. Liam and I are married. This is our family home. You're married to Dad, yes, I said, standing up. Felt like I needed to be on her level. But this house belonged to Dad and my ma'am. It's legally his. Your name isn't on the deed. These rules are crazy, and you don't get to threaten to kick me out. She lost it. Started shouting about disrespect, how I was an ungrateful brat taking advantage, how she was the woman of the house and deserved respect. Classic deflection tactics. The noise brought Dad out. What is going on out here? Maeve immediately tried to play the victim, waving the paper. Liam, tell Ronan. He needs to follow the rules. He's being so disrespectful. Dad took the paper, read it, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. He looked from the paper to Maeve, then to me. His face was grim. Maeve, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Did you discuss these specific rules with me? Did I agree to you demanding $250 from Ronan or telling him obey or get out? Maeve faltered. Well, no, not the exact words, but we talked about needing more structure. You agreed. We talked about maybe asking Ronan to keep the hallway clearer, Maeve. That's it, Dad snapped back. This? This is a control manifesto, and threatening my son in his own home? Absolutely not. The argument exploded then. Proper shouting match. Maeve dug in, refusing to back down, insisting she was right. Dad got increasingly angry, saying her behavior was unacceptable, a total breach of trust. It wasn't an instant get out, but it was bad. Dad finally told her he couldn't even look at her right now, and that she needed to go stay with her sister Siobhan for a few days so they could both cool down and figure out where to go from here. Maeve stormed out, screaming about how we were ganging up on her, packed an overnight bag, slammed the door, and Dad heard her car peel out of the driveway. He looked utterly drained, just slumped onto the sofa and put his head in his hands. Didn't say much, just, need some space, Ronan. My phone started pinging almost instantly. Vicious texts from Maeve, accusations, insults, demands. Then calls I didn't answer. It felt heavy. Dad was obviously wrecked, and now Maeve was on the warpath. Not sure what happens next, but it doesn't feel good. Update 1. Right. Thanks again for the comments and DMs. Helped process the initial shock. It's been a rough couple of weeks since Maeve stormed out after the rules disaster. Dad initially thought maybe some space would help. Maybe she'd see sense. Nope. Dad tried calling Maeve the next day to arrange a proper talk. She either ignored his calls or answered just to yell. She refused to acknowledge the rules were unreasonable or that threatening me was wrong. Instead, she doubled down. We owed her an apology. She insisted she wouldn't come back until Dad put me in my line and agreed to her terms. Maybe slightly modified, but still controlling. The angry texts to me continued, but also got weirder. Mixed in with the usual "you ruined everything" stuff were demands for Dad to bring her things she needed immediately. specific clothes, her preferred coffee brand, FFS. She also started calling Dad constantly at work. Maeve's sister, Siobhan, 50F, called Dad furious. Gave him an earful about abandoning Maeve. Dad tried to explain, calmly at first, about the rules and the ultimatum Maeve gave me. Siobhan wasn't having it, just parroted Maeve's version where I was the problem. Dad eventually lost his patience and told her to discuss it with Maeve, as her view was clearly skewed, and hung up. Siobhan then tried texting me. Same accusations. Manipulating Dad, being a spoiled brat. I showed Dad the texts. He told me to block her, so I did. Not engaging. This was petty, but revealing. Dad got an email alert about a potential change to his main bank account contact details. He logged in fast. Someone, using security answers Maeve would likely know, had tried, and failed, to change the recovery email and phone number to ones associated with Maeve. The bank's extra security layer stopped it, but it freaked Dad out. He spent an afternoon changing passwords and security questions on everything. Maeve denied it when he confronted her via text, but it was the final straw for him. Any lingering hope he had for reconciliation died right there. He realized the control wasn't just about house rules. After the bank account scare, Dad texted Maeve saying it was definitively over. He told her the trust was completely broken and he'd be contacting a solicitor to start divorce proceedings. He said communication from now on had to be about arranging for her to collect her belongings. It's been tense. Dad's stressed about the impending divorce stuff, obviously sad the marriage failed, but also visibly angry about the bank thing and Maeve's refusal to take any responsibility. I feel awful for him. Try to help out more around the house. Give him space when he needs it. The house is quiet, but not peaceful yet. More like the quiet before another storm. Maeve has agreed, demanded, to come get her stuff this Saturday. She insists Siobhan has to come with her. Dad agreed, but said I need to be here, and he's asked his friend Declan to be here too, just to keep things civil and witness. He's already changed the main locks. Feels like we're preparing for a siege. This divorce is going to be messy, isn't it? Update 2. Saturday's stuff collection day happened. It was about as pleasant as a root canal, maybe less. The entitlement was real, the tension was thick, and yeah, things got said. Maeve and Siobhan arrived spot on time. Maeve swept in like she was inspecting the place, barely acknowledging Dad or me. Siobhan hovered behind her, arms crossed, radiating disapproval. Declan, Dad's mate, was already there, parked awkwardly in the kitchen nursing a mug of tea, trying to look casual. Dad laid out the ground rules. Maeve could take her clothes, toiletries, personal items she owned before marrying him, and specific gifts given only to her. Anything joint, anything part of the house setup, or anything belonging to Dad or me stayed until solicitors sorted the financials. Maeve started packing her stuff from the bedroom, mostly clothes, shoes. But then the arguments started. She tried to claim a painting Dad bought years ago. My mom loved it. Dad shut that down hard. Leave it, Maeve. She argued over kitchenware, claiming stuff was hers when Dad had receipts showing otherwise. Lots of sighing and eye-rolling from her. She demanded jewelry. Not my mam's this time, thank God, but pieces Dad had bought during the marriage. Dad said those were joint assets to be discussed via solicitors. Maeve actually grabbed a couple of smaller items, a necklace, some earrings, and shoved them in her bag defiantly, while Dad was distracted by Siobhan asking where the good towels were. Seriously? Dad clocked it later, but decided it wasn't worth the fight right then. He'd list them for the solicitor. Petty win for her, I guess. Siobhan mostly stayed quiet initially, just helping Maeve pack boxes, but kept giving Dad and me dirty looks. Things came to a head when Maeve started insisting she take the fancy coffee machine, the one Dad got for his 50th from his work colleagues. Dad refused point blank. Maeve started getting loud, claiming she used it more, practically calling Dad selfish. Siobhan jumped in then, defending Maeve, telling Dad to stop being so bloody difficult and show some compassion. That's when I stepped in. I couldn't stand Siobhan's self-righteous act, knowing what Maeve had been texting. No dramatic airdrop this time. I walked over to Siobhan while Maeve and Dad were arguing about the coffee machine. Siobhan, I said, keeping my voice low but firm. You think this is about a coffee machine? You think Maeve is just some poor victim here? She scoffed. I know my sister, and I know how you've undermined her. Right, I said. I pulled out my phone and opened the texts from Maeve, the really nasty ones, the threats against Dad, veiled but clear, the vile names she called me, the ones where she talked about needing to lay down the law because I was out of control. I held the phone so only Siobhan could see the screen. Read these. This is your sister when she thinks no one's listening. This is why Dad's had enough. This is the respect she showed us. Siobhan's eyes scanned the screen. Her face didn't crumble like in a movie, but the color drained slightly. The aggressive certainty flickered. She didn't say anything immediately, just slowly looked from my phone to Maeve, still arguing with Dad, then back to the phone. She didn't challenge me, didn't call me a liar. She just went quiet. Her whole posture seemed to deflate a bit. She didn't help Maeve argue anymore. When Maeve tried to enlist her support again, Siobhan, tell him! Siobhan just mumbled something about needing to take a box to the car and walked out. She still helped load the car, but the fire was gone. She wouldn't really look Maeve, Dad, or me in the eye afterwards. Maeve eventually gave up on the coffee machine, but was fuming. They loaded the car in near silence, Maeve shooting poisoned darts with her eyes at me and Dad. They left without another word. Dad and Declan checked around. Besides the jewelry Maeve pocketed and maybe some random household bits, fancy soaps, a throw blanket Dad liked. Nothing major seemed missing. No ring theft this time, thankfully. The bank account attempt was her big overreach. Dad finally managed to get Maeve's solicitor details from her later via text. Everything goes through them now. He blocked Maeve's number. I kept Siobhan blocked. We haven't heard a peep directly since Saturday. Dad's solicitor is handling everything. The relief in the house is massive. It's not happy families. Dad's still processing the end of his marriage and bracing for the divorce details. But the day-to-day toxicity is gone. We had a big Sunday roast yesterday, first proper relaxed meal in ages. Talked about football, college, anything but Maeve. Showing Siobhan those texts wasn't about winning. It was about puncturing the bubble of BS Maeve had built around herself. Maybe making one of her key supporters realize this wasn't just Dad and me being unreasonable. Siobhan didn't apologize or switch sides dramatically, but Maeve lost her enthusiastic cheerleader in that moment, and I think she knew it. That felt like real consequence. Maeve made her choices with those rules and her behavior. Now she has to deal with the fallout. A divorce, a fractured relationship with her sister, probably, and finding a new place to live that isn't funded by my dad. Feels like the natural consequence of her own actions. Hopefully, this is the last update. Time to move on. Thanks for reading along, folks.
My vindictive soon-to-be ex-wife messaged me coldly, taking everything in court tomorrow. You'll die broke and alone. I wrote back, good luck with that. Then I reported her hidden income to the IRS. 72 hours later, federal agents were raiding her door. I, 42 male, am currently going through a divorce with my soon-to-be ex-wife Gabriella, 39, after 14 years of marriage. What started as an amicable split turned into World War III when she found out I was dating again. Quick background. We filed for divorce 8 months ago. No kids, thank God. The divorce was mutual, or so I thought. I moved out, got my own place, started therapy, hit the gym, the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, she kept the house, which was mine before marriage, Tubby, and her online consulting business. We were just waiting for the final decree. About that business, Gabriella's been running this lifestyle coaching thing for the past 5 years. On paper, she makes maybe $30 a year. In reality, well, let's just say her Hermes collection didn't come from coaching housewives about meal prep. 2 weeks ago, I posted a pic on Instagram with my new girlfriend. Nothing serious, just dinner. Within minutes, Gabriella lost her shit. The text started flooding in. You piece of shit. How dare you replace me? I'm taking everything. Your pathetic ass will be living in a cardboard box when I'm done. The grand finale came yesterday morning. A cold, calculated message. Taking everything in court tomorrow. You'll die broke and alone. I stared at that text for a good minute, then typed back, good luck with that. See, what Gabriella doesn't know is that I've been documenting everything. Everything, including the 300 cal plus she made last year that somehow never made it onto her tax returns, the luxury retreats she hosts, the 5K VIP coaching packages, all cash, all unreported. I may be a lot of things, but I'm not stupid. When we filed for divorce, I made copies of everything. Bank statements showing massive cash deposits, photos of her client gifts, designer bags, jewelry, first-class flights, screenshots of her bragging in her private Facebook group about her tax-free income strategy. So after her little threat, I did what any reasonable person would do. I went to irs.gov, filled out Form 3949-A, and attached 47 pages of evidence. Hit submit at 11:47 a.m. Then I blocked her number and went to lunch with my girlfriend. I honestly didn't expect anything to happen that fast. Maybe a letter in a few months, an audit next year if I was lucky. But the IRS must have been having a slow week because... Update coming in the comments. This gets wild. Update 1. The comments are blowing up. Let me answer some questions first. Yes, this is real. No, I'm not making this up for karma. Yes, I have a lawyer. Had one since we filed. No, I don't feel bad. Not even a little. Okay, so here's what happened next. This morning, Friday, I'm having coffee when my phone starts going crazy. Like, actually vibrating off the table. It's her sister Marilyn calling. I don't answer. Then her mom, then her best friend Natalie, then numbers I don't recognize. Finally, I answer Marilyn's 5th call because I actually like her and she's always been cool to me. What did you do? She screams. Good morning to you too? Don't play dumb. There are federal agents at Gabriella's house. They're counting boxes of stuff. What the hell did you do? I nearly spit out my coffee. Federal agents? Like, actual federal agents? Yes, with the jackets and everything. They showed up at 6 a.m. with a warrant. I'll admit, my first thought was, damn, the IRS doesn't mess around. My second thought was, I should probably call my lawyer. But Marilyn wasn't done. She's been calling everyone, screaming about how you destroyed her life. She says you reported her to the IRS? Is that true? Marilyn, your sister threatened to take everything I have. She literally said I'd die broke and alone. What did she expect? But the IRS? Really? You couldn't just handle this in divorce court like normal people? Normal people report their income, Marilyn. She hung up on me. My lawyer called 20 minutes later. Apparently, Gabriella's lawyer had already reached out, exploring settlement options. Translation: she's in deep trouble and she knows it. Here's the thing about tax fraud, folks. It's not just about paying what you owe. There are penalties, interest, potential criminal charges if it's bad enough. And from what I documented, it's bad enough. But wait, there's more. Update 2. The entitlement train has officially left the station, and Gabriella is the conductor. Since this morning, I've received 67 text messages from her various flying monkeys, 12 voicemails, all from her mom, 3 emails from mutual friends, 1 Instagram DM from her cousin in Australia. The general consensus? I'm a monster who's ruining her life over petty revenge. My personal favorite was from her friend Natalie. She's a woman trying to make it in this world, and you're tearing her down like typical toxic masculinity. Ma'am, tax evasion isn't a feminist issue, but the real entertainment came at 4 p.m. when Gabriella herself showed up at my apartment. Yeah, she drove 40 minutes to bang on my door like a crazy person. Open up, you bastard! I know you're in there! My girlfriend was over. We were watching Netflix. She looked at me like, is this woman for real? I opened the door but kept the chain on. Gabriella looked rough. Mascara streaked, hair a mess, designer sweatsuit that probably cost more than most people's rent. You destroyed my life, she screamed. You committed tax fraud, Gabriella. It's not fraud, it's smart business. Everyone does it. Everyone gets audited too. They took my computers, my files, everything. They froze my accounts. Sounds like a you problem. Then she noticed my girlfriend behind me. Oh boy, the look on her face went from rage to pure, unfiltered hatred. You did this for her? You ruined my life for some 20-something whore? For the record, my GF is 34 and an aerospace engineer, but go off. I did this because you threatened me. You literally said you'd take everything. I was angry. You replaced me. We filed for divorce 8 months ago. That doesn't mean you get to move on. The entitlement, you guys. The entitlement. She tried pushing past me. I closed the door. She started kicking it, screaming about how she's going to end me, how her lawyers will bury me, how I'm going to pay for this. My girlfriend, bless her, was already recording everything on her phone. Gabriella eventually tired herself out and left, but not before keying my car on the way out. Because of course she did. Yes, we have it on the building's security cameras. Yes, I'm pressing charges. My lawyer texted me an hour ago. Apparently, the IRS found significant discrepancies in her reported income. We're talking about $0.4 million in unreported income over 5 years. 1.4 million. And she was going to take me to the cleaners? More updates coming. Her mom just showed up at my building. Update 3. I'm writing this from a hotel room because shit has officially hit the fan. So remember how I mentioned Gabriella's mom showed up at my building? Yeah, it was just the beginning of what I'm now calling the night of 1,000 flying monkeys. First, some context about her mom, Alexis. This woman makes Lucille Bluth look like Mother Teresa. She's the kind of person who returns food at restaurants just to feel powerful. She once made a barista cry because her latte art wasn't Instagram-worthy. You get the picture. Alexis showed up at 7 p.m. with Gabriella's brother Randy, a 35-year-old entrepreneur who lives in her pool house. They somehow got past the security door and were pounding on my apartment door. "Open up. We need to talk like adults." My girlfriend looked at me. "Should we call the police?" "Not yet. Let's see how this plays out." I'd opened the door, chain on again. Alexis was in full suburban mom battle gear, Lululemon everything, fresh blowout, enough Botox to paralyze a horse. "How dare you," she started. "How dare you attack our family like this?" I didn't attack anyone. I reported tax fraud. Randy tried to look intimidating. Hard to do when you're wearing a Supreme hoodie and smell like Axe body spray. "Bro, you need to fix this. Call the IRS and tell them you made a mistake." I actually laughed. "That's not how the IRS works, bro. Then we'll sue you for defamation." "Truth is a defense against defamation, Randy." Alexis's face went from Botox frozen to somehow even more frozen. "You're going to regret this. We have connections. My husband knows people at the country club who what? Who'll make the IRS go away? Good luck with that." Then Alexis said something that made my blood run cold. "You know, it would be such a shame if something happened to your little girlfriend. Such a pretty thing. It would be horrible if her employer found out she's dating someone involved in such a messy situation." My girlfriend stepped into view. "Are you threatening me?" Alexis backpedaled faster than a politician caught in a lie. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just saying, actions have consequences." "Yes," I said, "like tax evasion. Those actions definitely have consequences." They left after more screaming, but not before Randy tried to shoulder check me on the way out. Missed completely and hit the door frame. Real intimidating, bro. But here's where it gets really crazy. At 2 a.m., I woke up to the smell of smoke. Someone had set my car on fire in the parking garage, not just heat anymore, full on ablaze. Fire department came, police came, building had to be evacuated. My beautiful 2021 BMW? Toast. Literally. Security footage shows a figure in a hoodie, but conveniently, the camera angle doesn't catch their face. Cops said without clear evidence, there's not much they can do. But I know, you know, we all know. My lawyer called this morning. Gabriella's legal team is now aggressively pursuing mediation. They want to meet Monday. Translation, the IRS found more than just tax evasion, and they're panicking. Oh, and get this. Gabriella posted on Facebook this morning. Yeah, she unblocked me just to make sure I'd see it. Some people can't handle seeing a strong, successful woman thrive. They'll do anything to tear you down, even weaponize the government against you. But I'll rise above this like I always do. Boss lady, have survivor, karma is coming. The comments are a mix of her friends, rallying support, and people asking what happened. She's playing the victim hard. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in a hotel room with my girlfriend, dealing with insurance companies, and trying to figure out if it's safe to go back to my apartment. But here's the kicker. My lawyer just sent me something interesting. Turns out the IRS investigation uncovered something else. Something about her business partner, Russell. Something about money laundering. This rabbit hole goes deeper than I thought. Final update coming soon. You're not ready for how this ends. Final update. Well, folks, we've reached the end of this wild ride, and hoo boy did it end with a bang. First, let me address the car fire situation. Cops couldn't prove anything, but mysteriously, Randy posted Instagram stories from a bar that night, making sure to film himself there until 3 a.m., almost like he was establishing an alibi, almost like someone told him to. Anyway, Monday's mediation meeting. I show up with my lawyer. Gabriella shows up with 3 lawyers. 3. Girl went from taking everything to bringing a whole legal army. She looked different. Gone was the designer sweatsuit. She was in a conservative black suit, minimal makeup, hair in a bun. Her lawyer must have coached her on the reformed woman look. Her lead lawyer, some slick dude named Vincent, started immediately. My client is willing to accept a 50-50 split of marital assets and waive alimony claims in exchange for your cooperation with the IRS investigation. My lawyer actually snorted. Your client is facing federal charges. She's in no position to negotiate. Actually, Vincent said, sliding a folder across the table, we think she is. I opened it. Screenshots of text messages between me and my girlfriend. Completely out of context, making it look like I'd been cheating before our divorce filing. Your client will testify that the marriage ended due to infidelity, Vincent continued. In court, these things matter. Here's the thing about those texts. They were from after we filed. But dates can be fuzzy in court. Stories can be spun. Gabriella smirked, first emotion she'd shown. How's that cardboard box looking now? But my lawyer? God bless this woman. She pulled out her own folder. Speaking of text messages, we have these. Screenshots of Gabriella's messages to her business partner Russell. The ones where they discussed moving money offshore. The ones where she bragged about hiding income. The ones where Russell mentioned his connections who could clean large sums. Oh, and one particularly damning text where Gabriella said, and I quote, "If I can hide this much from the IRS, hiding assets from my idiot husband will be cake." Gabriella's face went white. Vincent started flipping through pages frantically. Where did you get these? Discovery is a beautiful thing, my lawyer said, especially when your client backs up her messages to iCloud. But we weren't done. Remember Russell, the business partner? Yeah, he flipped. Turns out when the feds came knocking, he sang like a canary, full cooperation, threw Gabriella under the bus, then backed over her for good measure. According to him, the lifestyle coaching was a front. They were running an MLM scheme that bordered on illegal, funneling money through fake consultations, and yes, laundering money for some very questionable clients. Vincent tried to regroup. These are just allegations. Our client maintains. Your client, my lawyer interrupted, is looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison, minimum. The room went silent. Gabriella's carefully constructed composure cracked. This is your fault. She screamed at me. None of this would have happened if you hadn't. If I hadn't what? Reported your crimes? You threatened to destroy me, Gabriella. You literally set my car on fire. I didn't. Save it for the jury. Her other 2 lawyers were whispering urgently. Vincent looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Finally, Gabriella spoke, quietly, defeated. What do you want? I want what's fair, and I want you to leave me and my girlfriend alone. Fine. And I want the house, the one I bought before we were married, the one you've been living in. Her jaw clenched. Fine. And I want a restraining order. You, your family, your flying monkeys, everyone stays away from us. I can't control my family. Then I can't control what other evidence might find its way to the prosecution. She signed everything, right there. Gave up any claim to my assets, agreed to the restraining order, everything. But the best part? The best part. As we were leaving, 2 men in suits were waiting in the lobby, FBI agents, there to arrest Gabriella on money laundering charges. The look on her face when they read her rights, chef's kiss. Her mom was in the parking lot, saw the whole thing, started screaming about lawsuits and connections. One of the agents just looked at her and said, "Ma'am, your daughter is being charged with federal crimes. I suggest you find her a criminal defense attorney." That was Monday. It's now Thursday. Here's what's happened since. Gabriella is out on bail but has to wear an ankle monitor. Her assets are frozen pending investigation. Her business is shut down. Russell took a plea deal and is testifying against her. Randy tried to start a GoFundMe for her legal defense. It got taken down. Alexis has been calling everyone she knows, trying to find someone who can fix this. Natalie started a #FreeGabriella hashtag that's been roundly mocked on Twitter. As for me, I'm sitting in my apartment. Yeah, we moved back in, having a beer with my girlfriend. My lawyer says the divorce will be finalized within the month. The insurance company is processing my car claim. Life is good. Gabriella wanted to take everything from me. She wanted me to die broke and alone. Instead, she's facing federal prison, actual bankruptcy, and true isolation. Her friends are distancing themselves. Her family can't help her. Even her lawyer is probably questioning his life choices. I'm not saying I feel good about it. I'm not some vindictive monster who takes pleasure in her downfall. But I also don't feel bad. She made her choices. She committed crimes. She threatened me. She escalated at every turn. All I did was tell the truth. To everyone saying I went too far, she committed massive tax fraud and money laundering. Was I supposed to just ignore that? Let her take me to the cleaners while sitting on $1.4 million in hidden income? To everyone asking if this is real, I sincerely wish it wasn't. I wish my soon-to-be ex-wife was just a normal person who wanted a normal divorce. Instead, I got a front-row seat to a federal crime syndicate. Anyway, that's it. That's the story. My vindictive soon-to-be ex-wife thought she could destroy me, but ended up destroying herself. Oh, and for anyone wondering, no, I don't regret it. Not for a second. Good luck with that, Gabriella. Edit. To answer the common questions, yes, I have security cameras now. No, I don't know if she'll actually go to prison. Yes, my girlfriend is still with me. She's actually finding this whole thing fascinating. No, I won't be posting further updates. I've been advised by my lawyer to stop talking about this online. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. Remember, pay your taxes, folks. The IRS doesn't play. My wife after accidentally leaking her affair pic to our group chat. It's a mistake. Don't leave me, I replied. Then I forwarded the pic and her tearful confession voicemails to her parents and my divorce lawyer. Her CEO father is now offering me $1 million to make this disappear. I, 35 male, am still trying to wrap my head around how quickly a life can implode. It's been a weird few days. A sort of numb clarity has set in. 3 nights ago, it was a normal Wednesday. I was winding down, scrolling through my phone. Our main group chat, mostly college friends, a few family members, suddenly blew up. It was a picture of Amanda, 33F, my wife of 8 years, with another man. Compromising, to put it mildly. The kind of picture you definitely don't send to a group chat that includes your husband and your cousin. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Amanda. I ignored it. Then came the texts, a flood of them. OMG, Jason, I didn't mean to send that there. It's not what it looks like. Call me, please. I just stared at the picture. The shock was there, a cold pit in my stomach, but mostly, weirdly, I felt still. She'd clearly meant to send it to someone else, her affair partner, presumably. The sheer carelessness was almost as insulting as the betrayal itself. Her calls kept coming, then the voicemails started. Sobbing, incoherent apologies, claims it was a huge mistake, that she loved me, begging me not to leave her. The whole 9 yards. My reply to her barrage of texts was simple. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. Then I got methodical. Screenshot the group chat, the picture, her frantic texts. Downloaded all those tearful voicemails. She basically confessed to everything in her panic. Compiled it all neatly into an email. Sent one copy to her parents, George and Carol. Subject, thought you should see this. Sent another copy to Edward, a divorce lawyer my colleague had used and recommended highly. Subject, consultation needed ASAP, infidelity. I didn't reply to another message or answer a single call from her. She made her bed, now she gets to lie in it. With a spectator gallery. About an hour after I sent those emails, my phone rang. Unknown number. I had a feeling. Jason? It's George. Amanda's father. His voice was tight. We need to talk, in person, about Amanda. About this unfortunate situation. I'm prepared to be very generous to make this disappear. Think 7 figures. Make it disappear. Not help Amanda fix her life or apologize for my daughter's behavior. Just make the problem go away with money. The entitlement is honestly breathtaking. I just said, Mr. George, I'll have my lawyer contact you, and hung up. The silence from my end seems to be louder than any screaming match could ever be. Waiting for Edward to call me back. This is just the beginning. It's been a wild week since the pic. Thanks for the comments and DMs on the original post. Good to know I'm not losing my mind. My lawyer, Edward, is a shark. In a good way. He got back to me the morning after I sent him everything. Said the evidence is overwhelming and Amanda's accidental leak and subsequent voicemails basically handed us the case on a platter. He also confirmed my instincts about George's offer. Classic bullying and an attempt to control the narrative. George didn't wait for Edward. He showed up at my office later that day. No appointment. Just breezed past reception like he owned the place. He probably owns the building, knowing him. My boss, thankfully, knows some of what's going on and ran interference, telling him I was in an unavoidable all-day meeting. George left a message with my boss. Tell Jason the offer stands, but it has an expiration date. Don't be a fool. The arrogance is just wow. Amanda, meanwhile, has apparently been oscillating between hysterics and trying to rally support. Her best friend, Stephanie, called me, full of righteous fury. Jason, how could you be so cruel? She started, no preamble. Cruel? I asked, genuinely curious. Enlighten me. Sending that picture to her parents? And ghosting her? She's a wreck. She made a mistake, a terrible one, but she's destroyed. She accidentally shared evidence of her affair with our entire social circle, Stephanie, then left voicemails confirming it. I just forwarded the existing information to relevant parties. She needs compassion, not this cold-hearted revenge. Her father is trying to help, and you're being difficult. Ah. So Daddy relayed his version. His help involves offering me money to silence me, Stephanie, not to address the actual betrayal. There's a difference. She sputtered something about me not understanding the pressure Amanda was under, how George just wants to protect his family. Amanda still loves you, Jason. She wants to fix this. The time for fixing this was before she started an affair and got careless with her phone, Stephanie. All communication goes through my lawyer now. Click. For a fleeting second after hanging up, the sheer waste of 8 years hit me. The us that was before all this. But then the image of the pic and the memory of her father's blatant attempt to buy my silence solidified my resolve. No going back. The narrative they're spinning is that I'm the villain for not quietly accepting her mistake and for not taking the hush money. George apparently told Amanda he'd handle me. Edward sent a formal letter to George stating that all further communication regarding the divorce or any related matters must be directed to him, and that his client, me, considers George's unsolicited visit to my workplace and his financial offer as attempts to intimidate and unduly influence. He also formally rejected the offer. The best part? Carol, Amanda's mom, actually called me. Crying. Not for me, of course. For Amanda. For the family's reputation. Jason, dear, Amanda is beside herself. She knows she did a terrible thing, but airing this dirty laundry, her father is so upset. Can't you just forgive her for the sake of the family? Mrs. Carroll, I said as gently as I could, Amanda destroyed our family. I'm just dealing with the fallout. She needs to talk to her lawyer, and you probably need to talk to your daughter about honesty and consequences. More tears, then. Her father will be very displeased if this gets messy. He can make things difficult. A threat wrapped in a velvet glove. Lovely. So now I'm the bad guy for wanting a clean break from a cheating wife and refusing to be bought off by her rich daddy. The entitlement is a family trait, it seems. Edward is already preparing for them to play dirty. This is far from over. Update 2, 3 weeks later. Things have escalated as expected. Amanda's family is not used to not getting their way. George, true to his veiled threat, decided to try and make things difficult. Dirty trick 1. I got a call from my company's HR department. An anonymous ethics complaint had been filed against me. Allegations of creating a hostile environment and erratic behavior due to personal stress. It was clearly timed and worded to sound just plausible enough to cause trouble. Thankfully, my boss is a good guy, knows my work ethic, and the complaint was so vague it reeked of malice. HR had a chat with me. I calmly explained I was going through a contentious divorce initiated by my wife's infidelity, and that her family was not pleased with my refusal to sweep it under the rug. They reviewed my recent performance, stellar, as usual, and dismissed it as likely baseless. Edward has noted this as attempted professional sabotage. Dirty trick 2. Amanda, likely coached by Daddy Dearest, George, filed an emergency motion for spousal support. And not just any support. She claimed she was destitute and emotionally crippled by the trauma of the situation, her words apparently. She requested an obscene amount, basically asking me to fund her current lifestyle, her therapy for the trauma she caused, and her legal fees. The entitlement is truly off the charts. She also requested exclusive use of our apartment, even though she's been staying with Stephanie or her parents since the pic. Edward was ready. We countered hard. We presented the infamous picture and the chat log showing she sent it. Her tearful voicemails, admitting everything, promising to make it up to me. Evidence of her employment. She has a well-paying marketing job her father George got her, hardly destitute. George's $1 million offer and his visit to my workplace as evidence of their family's approach to problem-solving. The timing of the anonymous HR complaint. The judge was not amused by their antics. He asked Amanda directly why, if she was so traumatized and wanted to reconcile, her first move after the accidental leak wasn't a direct, sincere apology. Instead of a demand for cash and an attempt to oust me from my home, she mumbled something about being confused and scared. Confused about how she got caught? Maybe? Lol. The judge also raised an eyebrow at her income statement versus her claim of destitution. Result: her request for emergency support was massively slashed to a token amount, barely enough to cover her share of a coffee, let alone her legal fees or emotional damages. Exclusive use of the apartment was denied, especially since she'd already vacated. The judge basically told her that her current predicament was a direct result of her own actions. Amanda apparently had a meltdown outside the courtroom. Stephanie was there, glaring daggers at me. George, who was also present, hovering like a vulture, looked like he was about to explode. He actually tried to corner Edward in the hallway, blustering about ruining his daughter and not knowing who he was messing with. Edward coolly handed him his card and said, "All threats and attempts at intimidation are being duly noted, Mr. George. Have your lawyer call me." The latest is that Amanda, through her lawyer, is now trying to claim that the prenup we signed is invalid due to emotional distress at the time of signing, 8 years ago when she was ecstatic to be marrying me. It's a Hail Mary, and Edward says it's weak, but it shows they intend to drag this out and make it as painful and expensive as possible. They thought the money and intimidation would make me roll over. They underestimated how much I value my dignity and peace of mind over their tainted cash. Every dirty trick just strengthens my resolve. I'm not playing their game, I'm just calmly documenting their every move and letting the legal process do its thing. They want a war of attrition? Fine, I've got my armor on. Final update. It's been about 7 months since Amanda's accidental photo share blew up our lives. The divorce was finalized last week. Feels like a decade's worth of drama crammed into half a year. The last few months were exactly the slog Edward predicted. Amanda, egged on by George and her enabling friend Stephanie, fought every single point, no matter how ridiculous. Her attempt to invalidate the prenup went nowhere. As expected, the judge practically laughed it out of court after seeing the documentation and the original legal counsel she had when signing it. The revenge, so to speak, or the unraveling of Amanda's family, George's continued interference became his Achilles heel. He couldn't help himself. After the failed HR complaint, he tried to lean on some mutual business contacts to badmouth me professionally. What he didn't realize was that I'd already given my boss and a few key colleagues a very discreet, factual heads-up about the situation, including George's initial offer. When he started his smear campaign, it backfired. People saw him as a bully trying to cover up his daughter's mess and punish me for not playing along. Whispers started in their elite circles, not just about Amanda's affair, but about George's heavy-handed tactics and his attempt to buy my silence. That $1 million offer became a hot gossip topic. The pièce de résistance was when George, in a moment of sheer arrogance, tried to threaten Edward outside a pretrial hearing. He was loud, aggressive, and made some pretty specific threats about derailing Edward's career. What George didn't know was that Edward, anticipating such behavior, had a junior associate discreetly recording the entire exchange on his phone from a short distance away. When George's lawyer tried to paint Amanda as the victim of a vindictive husband during settlement talks, Edward calmly played back George's tirade. He then suggested that perhaps George's attempts to pervert the course of justice, starting with the bribe offer and escalating to threats against legal counsel, might be of interest to the Bar Association, or even law enforcement. The color drained from George's face. His lawyer looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him. Suddenly, they were very motivated to settle. The fallout: Amanda got exactly what the prenup stipulated. No spousal support beyond a very limited short-term rehabilitative sum that was part of the original agreement, contingent on her actively seeking to maintain her employment. She had to sell the designer handbags and jewelry, gifts from me and her father, to cover a chunk of her legal fees. Last I heard, she's still working at the job Daddy George got her, but the fun money days are over. Stephanie is still around, but rumor has it the friendship is strained because Amanda is, quote, a total downer now. George, his reputation took a significant hit. The story of the accidental photo, the affair, the attempted bribe, the threats, it all circulated. His power moves backfired spectacularly, making him look like a clown and a bully. He's still rich, but his social standing is tarnished. He had to issue a very quiet, very reluctant apology to Edward to avoid formal complaints. He also had to pay all of Amanda's substantial legal fees out of his own pocket, which I know infuriated him. Carol, still trying to play the victim by proxy, wailing about her poor Amanda to anyone who will listen. Most people just offer platitudes and then gossip about her behind her back. The affair partner. He vanished the moment the picture went public. Blocked Amanda on everything. No knight in shining armor there. Me? I'm good. Actually, better than good. The peace of walking away from that toxic dynamic is priceless. Kept my job, my dignity, and my assets as per the prenup. The whole ordeal was stressful and expensive, but it showed me I could handle a crisis with calm and strategy. There was no screaming, no public drama from my end. Just quiet, methodical, legal responses to their increasingly desperate and entitled actions. Amanda wanted to play games, and her father George thought his money could control everything. They both learned a hard lesson. She made her mistake, then her father compounded it by trying to bulldoze me. They got the cold financial reality and the social consequences they earned. That, my friends, is the most satisfying outcome I could have hoped for. Time to finally move on.